Welcome to the very first episode of Cuffs and Hoses, where we dive deep into the lives and experiences of those who wear the badge and those who fight the flames. I'm your host, Marshall Walker, and today we are starting off strong by talking about police relations. I am joined today with Sergeant Tom Blake, who has been a member with the police department for over 15 years. Thomas, welcome. Would you care to give our listeners a little bit of insight as we dive into the background and why you chose this career?
Absolutely. First and foremost, thanks for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here and share some insights with your listeners.
So where did it all begin for you then?
Well, to be honest with you, growing up, my stepfather was a police officer, and I always said to myself, after watching him go to work every day and, put on the uniform and tell the stories about the things that he would do while there and the people he'd interact with, I always thought, I never want to do this, ever. And I actually got into a career of doing medical things. So I was an EMT for a number of years, and the idea was I wanted to become a nurse. The issue was I ran out of money pretty quickly and decided I would have to join the Air Force in order to pay for college. So I joined the Air Force, and lo and behold, the only job that they had open was that of security forces or military police. So it was either do military police or be a broke college student trying to finish the last year of nursing school. So I joined the Air Force and found that I actually really did like the career field of law enforcement. So I switched my major, and after 3 years of doing nursing school, I swapped over and became a criminal justice major. When I got back, I graduated with a criminal justice degree and started a career in law enforcement.
So you didn't really want to do the whole, Greg Fokker male nurse thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think it would have suited you. I guess the same thing kind of falls for me. I was a criminal justice major, and now, I'm measuring your inseams when we get your uniforms going.
Well, I certainly appreciate the diligent and careful measurements that you always take every time I come into the store here, and it's nice to know that somebody has followed in my footsteps, so to speak. That's great to hear. And yes, I've seen Meet the Fockers, great movie, and I used to get that reference all the time. I would tell people, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to nursing school. I'm going to be an RN. They're like, you're going to be a male nurse? Yes, there are male nurses as well, and specifically, I wanted to be a trauma nurse or a flight nurse, so a little bit more of a masculine version of the traditional nurse that you would depict like in a hospital type setting. I wanted to go out there and do the cool stuff and get into the blood and guts and go on helicopters and things of that nature. So it just kind of seemed in line. I was really wanted to be an RN and decided to be a cop instead, where I get to do those things and also act in a capacity as a SWAT team medic, where I get to kind of scratch that itch, so to speak, when it comes to medical stuff, go out there, provide medical care when it's needed, and still do the police stuff that you see on TV that attracts everybody to this wonderful world of law enforcement.
Well, have you ever seen Die Hard? Now, obviously, that must have played a huge role in what you wanted to do.
Die Hard, the movie with Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, very familiar. Great movie. Love those taglines. It's kind of funny you say that. It's, go out and have a few laughs, I believe is what he said. And so, funny thing, during my training experience as a trooper years and years ago, I had an old salty trooper that once said on a traffic stop, I'll never forget it, we stopped this guy. This guy turns out to be a pellet gun, but he's got it stuck between his lap. And this old trooper says to him, after he pulls his gun out, he points it at him, he says, if you so much as blink, you're going to die in the dark. And I thought that was like a great movie line that should have been. It's something I could have seen Bruce Willis saying, and it actually happened. And I was like just enamored with this guy. I was like, did he really just say what I think he said? You so much as blink, you're going to die in the dark. I would have said, don't move. Freeze. He decided to get a little more eloquent in his direction, but I appreciated it. I remembered forever. And something else he told me that sticks with me to this day. It sounds weird, but he used to say to me, "Treat everybody like you want your mom to be treated, but have a plan to kill them in the back of your mind."
I mean, that is true. And I have to say, just to jump back into that, have you ever, or will you ever, shout at someone, "Stop in the name of the law"?
Not intentionally. Unless I revert back to some awkward moment when I was a child watching some kind of Western movie or Dirty Harry movie. No, not intentionally. I don't think those words would be would come out of my mouth with the intent behind them that's what I meant to say.
We're gonna get someone to do it at some point. We're gonna get body cam footage when this podcast grows. We're gonna have someone do it. So now, having been on with the department for so long, you are now obviously you're a sergeant.
Yes.
And you are now running or working with public relations, which I think is honestly a great fit for you. You speak very eloquently, and I think, honestly, there couldn't be a better fit for someone.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. Yes, I'm in my 15th year, still assigned to the patrol division, which I love. I still love being a cop, but I do. When our previous chief was here, he decided to expand on the public relations. He wanted a PIO, and so I put in for the job at that point. Regretfully, I wasn't selected, but, probably a better time now than then for me to do this kind of thing. But yeah, it's a challenge. Every day it's something different. We deal with reporters a lot. We deal with the public a lot. We deal with potential issues and mitigating the possibilities of negative things come in. And at the same time, we get the ability to highlight great work that's being done by the cops. So we can go out there, we take pictures of our police out there engaged with the public. We can go out and highlight the good work that's being done by officers, which is certainly a rewarding experience. That said, I will tell you, it's not all rainbows and butterflies like you might imagine.
Well, and again, getting to see the other side of it and getting to interact with you guys over the years, honestly, has been a very rewarding experience. And not to mention, too, I remember the first time that someone in uniform came in on my first day. I was looked at and then walked right by because they were like, I do not know this person and I don't know what they're doing here. But to be honest, ever since then, it's text at 2 o'clock in the morning. Hey, do you know if my stuff's going to be ready? And then me just looking at my phone and hitting silent. But it really is. Like I said, it's rewarding. And that's my goal of this podcast, is to bring to light that all of you just chose this as your job. And it's not what everybody on Facebook and social media is showing, that, this cop, pegged me down and hurt my arm. It's just the job, and this the career you guys chose.
Sure. Yeah, it sounds cliche to say it, but people often say, I didn't choose this career, it chose me. And I tend to agree with that. Again, I was hell-bent on being a medical professional. I wanted to be
You can say male nurse. It's okay.
I wanted to be a nurse.
Yes.
I wanted to wear my white hat with a little red cross on the top, wear it proudly, walk around. I was the guy that had the stethoscope hanging from the rearview mirror. I wasn't handcuffs. I had a stethoscope hanging there because I loved medical stuff. I still do. I have a passion for it. I taught in the Syracuse Police Regional Academy for probably the last, I would say, 12 years that I've been here. Every year, everybody that's gone through the Syracuse Regional Police Academy has attended my medical class, and so I still have that. The nice thing about being a police officer, though, is that, especially with our agency, we are just the right size. Okay, we're not so big that you get lost. You're not just a number. We're not so small that your uncle has to be the chief in order for you to advance anywhere, right? So you can make a name for yourself. You can be a patrol officer first and then branch off and do other things. Not that there's anything wrong with being a patrol officer. You can do 20 years on patrol and have a wonderful career. But if you want to branch out and do other things, our department gives you that ability. And that's the one thing for me that I saw. I'm like, I could do my medical stuff. I can teach. I can do my proactive details. As you know, I run the ATV detail here for the city, which to me is very rewarding. I love it. Believe it or not, ATV operation is one of the most complained about things within the city as a whole. I can't think of anything else that people call either the mayor's office or the chief's office to complain about more than ATVs that were operated illegally on a public roadway. That's the number one complaint that comes in. And so to be able to address that complaint when concerned citizens call and say, hey, they're tearing up the golf course, hey, they're driving down the road, almost hit my kid, or they went through my backyard, or they're using these ATVs for the purpose of continuing their criminal enterprise, whether it be selling drugs or whatever, right? So ATVs work great for that purpose, and they know it, and that's why they're utilized. So being part of that has been awesome. I've had the ability to do other things. Now with the public relations thing, I can kind of scratch that itch, so to speak, where I can go out there and do things with the community, which, by the way, is what my degree is in. community and human services. And until I started doing this job, I had no idea what that meant. People were like, do you have a degree? I'm like, yes. Well, what is it? Community and human services. And they'd say, well, what is that? I'm like, I haven't the foggiest. I don't have a clue. It's like if you tell somebody you have a degree in psychology, well, it's pretty straightforward, right? You're in the mental health field. If you tell somebody my bachelor's degree is in the Bachelor's of Arts in Community and Human Services, you get that puzzled look. Like, what exactly is it? Truth is, I have no idea. I couldn't tell you.
To be honest with you, and I think a lot of people, especially in this day and age, I mean, a lot of what you do is learned on the job. I mean, my degree literally is 4 years of me paying back student loans. But again, like I said, it was an experience, and I'll never forget it. But it also gave me the know-how and kind of innovation to do my own thing. And I really, like I said, I think because of just your personality, the way you are, I think public relations is, like I said, a phenomenal fit for you. And again, like I said, you're willing to come on, and divulge who you are. And I know I have talked to a lot of others that are kind of a little worried, so that's why I'm glad that you drew first blood, so to speak, and were willing to come on and do this at 9:00 at night after just getting off an awards ceremony. So that's awesome. What do you do when you're outside of work? I understand you play guitar in a band, or
well, I wouldn't go quite as far as say guitar. I do play a guitar, a guitar in a couple of different formats. I play electric a little bit, and I play acoustic. I'm terrible at it, but it's like I always tell people, a guitar to me, or music in general, is like the woman that I've been enamored with my whole life, who just does not love me back. And no matter how many times I deliver flowers or set the mood, it's not going to work. They're not going to love me. And that's okay. I'm going to keep trying because I'm a hopeless romantic. I love music. I don't understand it. It doesn't love me back. It frustrates me more than it doesn't, but I still love it. And because of that, I go, will you date me again? Will you just give it another shot?
Just one more chance,
yes,
please.
Yes, please. I promise I'll be different this time. And so I do everything I can to try to be good at it. I realize there's a deficiency. That part of my brain does not work, and I know that. But it's okay, because when I'm playing guitar, for me, it's a stress reliever.
Yeah.
And folks that work in the field of law enforcement deal with a number of stresses.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it be stresses from, say, administrative changes, or the climate as far as law enforcement is concerned, or perhaps the way you're treated by members of the public who just don't like the police just for the sake of their existence. They don't like consequence or authority at all, and so you're very much disliked right away because you wear that uniform. And so that leads to some stressors, right? Nobody likes to be disliked. Nobody wants to be the person like, oh, this person's around again, right? Nobody wants to be that person. So when you are thrust into a situation where you're constantly going places where people don't want you, or they'll call because they need you, but then the second it's over, they're like, get out of here, I don't want to talk to you. It leads to stressors. And unfortunately, with this line of work, people will turn to alcohol or unhealthy outlets, right? And so every academy that I am part of, I always tell them the same thing. I'm like, I don't care what it is. It could be running, it could be working out, it could be musical instruments, it could be whatever. As long as it's something healthy, have some kind of healthy release where you can deal with your stress in such a way where you can offload it without it compounding and causing health problems, right? Because there's no hiding it. There are a number of officers who will turn to the bottle and they'll use alcohol as a coping mechanism, right? And because they have to deal with that stress, and then it leads to negative side effects, right? Like our career, let's face it, has a much higher rate of unsuccessful marriage. So it leads to divorce. I think the average is 50% somewhere. Law enforcement officers probably closer to 70%. In fact, it's only the officers that marry other officers that seem to have any success, because they have that understanding.
And they know what life's like on the job.
Absolutely.
And I think even now, even more than ever, that stigma is just cast on you guys. And that's, like I said, that's the whole point of this, is to show everybody what you guys are behind the badge. I won't lie. Everybody's been pulled over. I mean, I remember when I was 16 with my license, the first time I saw those lights, my asshole puckered up, because you're like, holy shit. And the trooper literally came out, looked at my license. He goes, "Oh," he goes, "Just got this, huh?" I'm like, "Yep." So where you going? School? Yeah. You gonna go fast there? Or you gonna take your time? I go, "Take my time, sir." And like I said, it's all about that first interaction. I could have had a terrible interaction. Every job has an asshole, and everybody's worked with an asshole. But to let like social media dictate who you're supposed to hate and who you're supposed to, follow, I think has gotten out of control. And I know it's got to be hard on you guys.
Oh, no doubt. Far too often things are decided in the court of public opinion, right? Like officers are already guilty before the facts and circumstances come out. And unfortunately, when people are behind social media, they can put out there whatever they want, a false narrative, which will then grow legs. And a lot of times, being a member of law enforcement or being involved in a situation where you can't necessarily put out there all the information, right? Because it some of that has to be kept private for the basis of, say, criminal prosecution. So now if I have information which could quickly dispel the false narrative that's put out there, I may not be able to release that information because it could have a negative effect on the outcome of the basis for the original criminal charge that you're dealing with. So, one thing I will always say is that think for yourself. Don't believe everything you see, right? As a citizen, right? As a resident, whatever, in any particular area, just look at it for what it is. Take a moment, pause. Don't jump to conclusions, right? We have this happen all the time. You see something, you watch a 10-minute body camera clip, and it's like, oh my God, it looks awful. And sometimes we have situations. I recall a video from years ago. The video it's a dashboard camera. This car is pulling into a gas station, right? Right away, it looks like the cops pull over, they jump out, they start dumping rounds at this guy.
Yep.
Now, based upon that body camera video, or dash cam video, I should say, it looks like a terrible... I myself, as an officer with 20 years experience combined between federal, state, and local law enforcement, I look at it and I go, that doesn't look good at all. That looks really bad. Right? So based on that one dash cam video. Now, you watch that and they shut it off and they say, okay, what's everybody think? And I'm like, you're kind of like half raising your hand. How does it look? You got you're almost a fear of repercussion. Like, what if I say something isn't in line with everybody else thinking? So you're kind of apprehensive about speaking up, but everybody's kind of thinking the same thing. That looks awful. Doesn't look like a good shoot, right? Now they play the second body camera or the second dash cam video. The other car is coming in from the other direction. Okay. What you don't see in the first dash cam video is this suspect has got his hands on his gun that's in the waistband, right? So all you see is this suspect from the back. You see the officer pulling quick, gets out, starts dumping rounds. When you watch the other dash cam video, you can clearly see him pulling the handgun out of his waistband. He's actually bringing it up. At this point in the video, the handgun is actually past his belly button, and he's getting ready to turn to engage the officer. The officer could see that from his point of view, offset from the car just a few feet. The dash cam didn't see that. The dash cam has a 3-foot difference off to the right, cannot see that. The officer saw that. So now, if you only had that dash cam video that you saw in the first one, looks terrible. You have that second dash cam video, shows it from the other angle, and it's like, wow, great police work, because this cop was about to get shot.
And that's what I'm talking about. It's all about context. Like I said, it's you're basically looking at just half the image, and I have to say you're doing great while I've been measuring your inseam this entire time. So besides, all right, so let's say that if everyone just took a deep breath and actually looked at the bigger picture, they would see that it's not all black and white. It's a very gray area we live in these days, and like I said, it's that stigma that is just it's a constant like a pain that you just can't get rid of, because like I said, I get to see you guys in a different light, and to me when I see that stuff, it's very negative, where it's definitely not that way. Sure. And it just needs to change. And I mean, and like I said, it's got to be harder now than more than ever, especially when you're training in the academy. Like you have to say, listen, you're going to eventually hook someone up, and it's going to be scary, and you have to with all your willpower just basically say, This is my job. This is what I chose to do, and this is the procedure I have to follow. So again, I can't imagine, especially today, what it's like getting to walk in your guys' shoes.
Yeah, it can be difficult. Some days are great. You get a rare opportunity to really impact somebody's life in a positive way. One of the things that they always ask is like, why do you want to be a police officer when you come through the initial hiring process? And the most cliche answer you could say is, I want to help people, right? So what does that mean? I may be stopping to help somebody who has a flat tire on the side of the road while they're on their way to kill their wife, and I pull over and I help them change their tire, and in fact, I've actually assisted them in carrying out the murder that they had premeditated before I got there, right? So we don't know what somebody's intentions are. So to help people, not really a great answer, right? That's not why. It's not a good reason to get into law enforcement. Isn't really to help people, because I think when you're younger, you have these ideations that everybody's a good person, and that you going out of your way to help all these people when they're having a bad time is going to kind of either make them into a better person or make them continue being the good person that they already are. And the fact is, the truth of the matter is, and people don't want to hear this, is that there are very evil people out there that are solely intent upon furthering their own personal gain, worrying about the criminal element, and you remain alive because they wish it to be. And that's the truth of it. You haven't crossed the wrong person yet. And so I think, as they say, the old adage, ignorance is bliss. That's the reality of it. Like, I wish I didn't know the things that I knew. I grew up in a tiny little town in the middle of nowhere. I grew up very, very poor.
Yep.
I was sheltered. Right. I moved to the city of Syracuse. I used to live in the 400 block of Oak Street. I had no idea about the stuff that went around me. I had no clue what was happening a block away from me. I was ignorant. I had no idea. I was uneducated. I believed that everybody was good, and if they were bad, it's because some unfortunate circumstance happened to them, and they were bad as the result of what happened. Not just because they were intent on criminality of one degree or another. And that's the fact of the matter is there's people that they're only concerned with themselves. They don't care who they have to hurt, and they will do whatever they have to do to meet that basic psychological need of, this is what I want and I'm going to get it no matter what the cost is.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when Heath Ledger played the Joker in Batman. There's just, why so serious? No, I'm joking, but at the same time, you're right. It's scary. It's a scary world, and honestly, and that's one of the truths is I don't know that. Some of that bliss is kind of cast upon me. When I leave here, I go home. I mean, I live 25 minutes away from the heart of the city, and it's still going on. I mean, whether I'm going to bed or not, this stuff is still happening. And it is. It's scary. It's a scary thought, and you're right. You want to believe people are innately good and that whole nature versus nurture concept, but yeah, I definitely agree with you. It's definitely something that is a scary thing to think about.
No doubt. I don't even know what to tell my kids anymore. You teach them, treat people like you want to be treated. Share everything what you have with somebody else. Don't judge a book by its cover. You kind of teach them those core values that we learned growing up. The fact of the matter is, if you're doing that, you're setting them up for failure. I mean, that's the truth of it, right?
Yeah.
So you want to teach your kids to be smart and sensible, but don't have the wool pulled over your eyes.
And be naive, yeah.
One of my buddies, I love this quote that he says to me. My buddy Todd, I gotta. If he's listening to this, I gotta throw him props on this. I love it. Here it is. There's two types of people in this world. You got givers and you've got takers, and givers have to set limits because takers don't have any. Let that sink in for a moment. I'll say it again. You got two types of people in this world. You got givers and you got takers. And givers have to set limits because takers don't have any. In other words, there are people out there that will take everything you have without thinking twice about it, right? And so you as a giver, if you're a good person and you want to share things with other people, you have to temper that a little bit and not give away all that you have, because somebody will always take and take and take until there's nothing left to give.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it.
Yeah, and that's very true. It's not as similar as my life quote, which is no regrets. That's my motto, or that, or everybody Wang
No
Chung
regrets?
tonight. No regrets.
No
yes.
regrets, not a single
Listen,
one.
this is the first podcast, okay? And listen, it's only going to get better from here. But so
You're not setting the bar very high.
well, no,
I
listen.
expect to be the most highly rated podcast you ever have. I don't care who you have on here next. I don't care if Howard Stern himself comes and sits in this chair. I expect to be number one indefinitely.
We might have that. Just might happen.
I think it is. I think the possibility of the forecast of where this is going to go is endless.
Yeah.
There's no limit to who's going to walk into this office and sit in this chair.
Exactly. And, it's going to lead to other things, going out on ride-alongs and, me say, hey, can I come arrest that guy? No, get back in the car. Okay. So, stuff like that. But
well, we do have, I will give a plug out to ongov.net.
Yeah.
Sign up for the test. We are trying to hire. We want good people who are not completely unreasonable and have a false sense of reality. We want strong-minded, confident people who are going to join our ranks and go out there and do some good. Because I will say, after all these years, every once in a while you get the opportunity to help a legitimate victim and impact their life tremendously. Years ago, going back many moons now, I was able to find a woman who was being held against her will. She moved here from another state. And this man took complete advantage of her, got her social service benefits, was not allowing her to leave the house, was taking all of her money. She eventually had the strength to get out one day. She went down to the corner store on Pond Street. She called the police. I was able to get her out of that terrible environment, get her moved over to another property not far from where she lived, but a place that was all hers. And that to me, I saw the look in her eyes. People say thank you all the time. When she looked at me and told me how appreciative she was, it was like at the same time she was lifting 300 pounds of weight off of her and setting it down in front of me. And she was like, I was able to make an impactful difference in her life. And that is something that you can't replace that feeling. When you legitimately get to change the trajectory of somebody's life, whether it be through just stepping in and providing a place like that where she could go, or maybe taking the time to listen to somebody. You never know when somebody's at their last moment, right? There's always that second. Suicidal folks, for example. There's always that second where you're able to give them pause and maybe they rethink where they're going. Stuff like that. That's the stuff that will stand out. That's the stuff when you look back at a 20-year career of thousands of law enforcement calls. It's those few calls where you really, you know what? I did something that made a difference in this person's life, right? And maybe years ago, I met this woman, real nice woman that got involved in drugs. And she was living over on Burnett Ave with a drug dealer. And I was able to get involved in a situation, caught her a break on a couple of things, and she ran into my mother years later and said, I just want to let you know, your son changed my life. And my mom came back. She didn't say it to me.
Yep.
Right? I didn't hear it from somebody else. My mother came home and told me, she's like, yeah, I ran into a girl, says she works at the airport, says that you got involved and you helped her out, and now she's clean, she's turned her life around. That to me is huge.
Yep.
Right? Just little things that you can do that. And so they're rare, but you do have these opportunities, and that's something that you look back at a 20-year career and go, you know what? I did something. I didn't just take your garden variety calls, write reports, just come to work for a paycheck. You actually made a difference, which is huge. And I don't know how to state it any better than like it's better than any paycheck you can get. I mean, that type of feeling, knowing that you actually made a difference in somebody else's life is great. Because we've all there's not a person listening here that hasn't had a moment in their life where it could be defined as their weakest moment.
Yep.
And to have somebody step in and actually care and listen, it's huge.
Yeah. And we really do. We've as we kind of, go on our way, we remember all the negative, where it's the positive, the little things that matter the most. And I think that we could all take a little page out of that book, because you're right. Like, it's those little things, and those are what add up and make you feel good about going home at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And yes, so they are hiring. So everybody that you just heard, that if you want to join a family, because that's what I'm going to call it, what is it? Give us the website again.
Absolutely. So you go to ongov.net, sign up for exam information, right? So we'll offer exams usually twice per year, usually around May, June timeframe, and then again November, December timeframe. We are hiring. We're looking for good candidates. We would love to bring people in and watch the ranks grow because, when I started, there was 800 people that would show up for an information session, right? I'd be in there with 800 other people going, I have no chance of getting this job, right? Now, we're not seeing those numbers. We're not seeing people rush to the exam website and signing up for exams. We're not seeing people come in. We're not seeing the interest come in like it used to be. And I hope that changes because this is a great career field, right? You're going to see the best of people, you're going to see the worst of people. But the reality is, I can't imagine doing anything else. And honestly, they say if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And that's the truth for me. I still love my job. 16 years later, I love the Syracuse Police Department for everything they've given me. I also love the South Carolina Highway Patrol, who gave me 3 great years.
Yep.
They hired me when other places didn't want to. They looked the other places looked the other way. I applied for multiple police agencies. South Carolina was the first one to say, come join our ranks, and I'm thankful for that. I did my 3 years. I came back home for family, been at SPD. SPD took me in, and they've been wonderful to me. They really have. I love my agency. I'm not afraid to admit it. And every chance I get to talk to somebody who even has a remote interest in becoming a member of law enforcement, I direct them to the same website.
Yep. And like I said, that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this. Like every job I've had up until this point has led me to do something like this where I'm passionate about it. And I'm hoping that this turns into, like we've said, there's the potential for this is just to grow and grow. And hopefully by you taking that first swing is going to show that it's okay to come on and talk. Whether it's about the job, whether it's about what you do during your time off, whether it's about your pet peeves, which honestly, I have to say I'm going to probably call this title of the episode Don't Call Me Boss, because that's one of my biggest pet peeves is when people call me boss and then they come in and then they add the little half fist bump at the end. It's just very awkward, I'd rather be called madam if that were the case.
Sure.
But I do appreciate you taking the time to come on, and especially now that we're reaching 10 o'clock at night. And what if I told you I wasn't hitting record this entire time? You would probably slam the keyboard down and be like, fuck this. But no, I do, like I said, I appreciate you coming on and doing all this for me, especially after a long day. Like I said, this is going to be my music. Whether I'm good at it or not, that's time will only tell. But like I said, thank you for being the first, and you always remember your first.
No doubt. Whether it's good or bad, you remember it. I'm absolutely honored that you chose me for the first round. I wish you years of success with this. I think you got a knack for it. I've had a great time, and again, absolutely happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you.
Best of luck to you, sir.
Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone, and don't forget to do that subscribe thing you're supposed to do, or I'm supposed to say, because, I'm really good with social media. But thank you for listening, and have a good night, and we look forward to having you back on.